Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this works. Anyway, there's a new FAQ, new errata, whatever. Sorry, I need to get some caffeine in me. It's a biggie. Right. So if you've never read one of these FAQ errata documents before, blue bits is where they've edited some stuff off the old errata, and pink is entirely new. There's some massive changes in this, by the way. Well, I say massive. They're not massive, but they're relatively impactful changes that I think are, generally a good idea. I'm just going to open up the old errata so we can just compare where we were. Firstly, I'd just like to mention the file names they use. Like, there's no like consistent format for file names. Like, one's called eng_whtow_rulebook_faq-2ywgj. Like, weird. Anyway. Right, so let's go through the rulebook changes first, because they're the most impactful. So they've changed the close order combat results point again. This time, so if I go back, that's page... A close order formation with a unit strength of 5 or more may claim a bonus of +1 combat result point. They've increased that to a unit strength of 10. Now, what this means is that basically, historically, single entity monsters almost always had a unit strength of 5 or more because they had 5 or more wounds. The unit strength is essentially how many wounds they've got. So most dragons were like or ridden monsters were like 6, 7, 8, 9 wounds, that kind of order of magnitude of wounds. Now, none of them, I don't think, were unit strength 10. So now they don't get +1 combat res for monsters, which I think is a very welcome change, actually. And clarifies that up a bit, and also means that like smaller units of infantry don't get a bonus for being in serried ranks, because why would 9 blokes get a bonus for? Do you know what I mean? So like, I think that's a good change. Well done. Magical vortex. Some magical vortices, it's not vortexes, it's vortices, honestly. Some magical vortices move at the start of each turn, often by scattering. Should a magical vortex end such a move over a unit, move it by the smallest amount possible in any direction so that it can be placed on the battlefield, not touching the bases of any models. Now, what they've done here is they've changed it so that it says in any direction. And what in any direction means is previously if you had like unit, and you put a vortex over there and it travelled that way, it had to travel over all of them because it had to move in a straight line. Now they're saying you move it over the unit and then you can either go up or down, just get it out of the way, basically. So you can't have a vortex going down an entire army. So actually that means like you don't have to worry now about deploying your army like in close blocks, just in case somebody's got a pillar of fire to throw over it. Casting spells. A wizard can attempt to cast a number of spells equal to their level of wizardry per turn, but may only attempt to cast each spell once per turn. So that's a change as well. There's a lot of magic items out there that give you knowledge of an extra spell, which basically meant that you're able to cast, if you're a level 4 with an extra spell, you're able to cast 5 spells a turn. Now you're only able to cast 4 spells a turn. So actually, a lot of these magic items that kind of give you knowledge of like an entire spell lore, but you can only cast equal to your level of wizardry a turn. Actually, that's made those items, I think, look a lot more attractive, because that, number of spells equal to level of wizardry, that's That's absolutely that limitation is already there. So actually, that increases the value of those items, I think. This one is pretty big. The casting levels of casting wizard's level of wizardry is then divided by 2 and added to give the casting result. So previously, if you were level 4, you added 4 to your casting roll to get a casting result. And if you now, you have to divide by 2, rounding up obviously. So basically, if you're a lower tier wizard, you add 2 to your casting roll, and if you're a higher tier wizard, you add... Sorry, if you're a lower tier wizard, i.e. level 1 and 2, you add 1 to your casting roll, and if you're a higher tier wizard, i.e. level 3 or 4, you add 2 to your casting roll. So this does a few things. Firstly, it makes those... It devalues level 4 wizards quite a bit. Because essentially, if you're level 3... paying 15 points to get an extra spell is cheaper than paying 30 odd, normally 30 points for an extra level of wizardry. The only thing so essentially, if you're a level 3 with like a 15 point extra spell item, you can cast 3 spells a turn, you get +2 to cast on all your casting rolls. If you are level 4, though, for instance, then you get +2 to cast, and so you can cast an extra spell per turn. So that's what the 15 points is really paying. The other 15 points on top of if you see what I mean, 15 points for a magic item, 30 points for another level. That's what that's more or less paying for. So that's pretty big. It also means that actually, I'm glad I haven't done my Cathay review yet, because a lot of this... I guess this is probably why I was struck, because like my Cathay review, I've recorded it like 4 or 5 times and got to about 40-50 minutes into the video, apart from the one time I forgot to press record. That video actually went quite well. The others, I've never really been happy with like trying to discuss them, because there's something in their rule set that obviously takes all this into account, but it does one of the other things that this also does is it makes like abilities that give you +1 to cast even more valuable now, because essentially like a level 4 wizard used to get +4 to cast, now they get +2. Adding an extra +1 onto a 4 is an extra 25%, obviously, but adding an extra +1 onto a 2 is an extra 50%. So that +1 bonus to cast that you can get from some abilities and stuff, actually that's hugely valuable now, because you've got an extra 50% on. So proportionately, it's a lot more worthwhile. It also means, like, if you're a level 4 wizard, like, your average roll on 2d6 is 7. Like, rolling a 7 or more on 2d6 is basically like rolling a 3.5 plus on 1d6. Like, it's more likely than 4, not as likely as 3. So actually, that's kind of like your most likely roll. So adding +2 to that means that, like, 9 is what you can reasonably expect on. So essentially, they've depowered magic quite a lot, which also makes me even more confused about the new match play guidelines, because this rule I think does the job. It's quite simple. Barely controlled power. However, the wizard cannot cast any more spells for the remainder of the current turn. So this is on page 109. This is the miscast thing, isn't it? Barely controlled power. That's not page 109, it's page 109 of the document, which is not that. Barely controlled power. You cannot attempt to cast any more spells for the remainder. Okay. So they've... Oh, where's that gone? Let's put those next to each other so they're easier to find. The wizard. Okay, so previously, if you got barely controlled power, then no wizard could attempt to cast any more spells. With this one, it just turns off the wizard. However, power drain, that does turn off magic for everybody. Okay, so what's next? Wizardly Dispel. Wizards that are fleeing or not on the battlefield cannot be nominated. Wizards that are... Was that a thing? Wizards that are engaged in combat can only be nominated to dispel spells that target them or their unit. So that's new. It used to be that if you're in combat, you can't dispel spells. So essentially you could have two wizards in combat with each other, freely casting assailments at each other, because neither of them could dispel because they were in combat. Now they can, because the dispel targets them. Oh no, they've cocked it up again. I think that's what they meant to do, but technically an assail... Or does it? Who does an assailment target? I guess it's got to target them or their unit, hasn't it? Sorry, I'm just being thick. That's got to turn off. Well, it gives you an ability to dispel an assailment, right? Dispel, so essentially dispels, they've changed the rule, so you get half your level added to it. Dispelling remains in place. Spells like vortices, you can be in range of the vortex in order to dispel it. So they should be much less impactful. Ward saves. A ward saves warding value. Rules that affect armor value do not affect the warding values unless stated otherwise. They've explicitly stated this. I don't think they needed to, but anyway, they have, just to make it clear. The fighting rank. Okay. When two opposing units are engaged in combat, any row of models, be it rank or file, in which one or more models in base contact with the enemy, is the fighting rank. Any model within the fighting rank within a number of inches equal to its movement. Any model that is within a fighting rank and within a number of inches equal to its movement of the enemy unit can fight. A number of inches equal to its movement... I mean, that's correct, but this represents models closing in upon the foe. So they've tried to deal with line hammer. So basically, if you've got a massive line of dwarves, you take the unit that's in combat and you measure 3 inches out, and whoever's in that range gets do so if they're rank or file directly behind supporting attack within a number of inches. So it's the same with supporting attacks as well. So you've got to be within your movement range of the thing that you're fighting in combat in order to get your attacks off, including supporting attacks. Fair enough. Charging units. To represent this, models gain initiative. Models gain during the combat phase of a turn in which they charged. Page, what has changed there? I thought that was... I'm not sure about that. Let's go 1, 4... That's 166. 1, 4... 5, 1, 4, 6! What did it say? 146. Charging units. Change the second sentence of the first paragraph. Charging units. Second sentence. To represent this, every model within a charging unit modifies its initiative characteristic for the remainder of that turn to a maximum of 10. Right. To represent this, models gain a modifier to their initiative characteristic during the combat phase of a turn in which they charged. A model within a charging unit modifies its characteristic for the remainder of the turn. Models gain a modifier to their initiative. Modifier to initiative characteristic, maximum 10, modifier in which they've just moved the words around. I don't understand this. Like, they've literally just moved the words around. Comment down below. Am I missing something obvious here? Like, it just looks like they've changed the words. Frenzy. Oh no, they've changed this fly clarification. Which was page 170. So they've said, except when following up or pursuing, model with a special rule can choose to move by flying through the air rather than moving across the ground. When it flies, it flies music. Models that choose to Models that choose to move by... Okay, they're replacing a... Okay, so what was the previous clarification? Fly. Whenever a model with a special rule moves, it can choose either to move across using it or move by... Okay, could choose to move apart from when followed. So essentially they're saying when you're following up or pursuing, you're not allowed to fly. I mean, I don't know that makes much difference. I mean, because essentially the only way that you could, like, use fly when, like, pursuing, I guess, is if somebody flees through a unit, but then flees out the other side enough that you could plop over and get them with your pursuit move. But whatever. Frenzy. Change the first paragraph. During a turn in which you made a charge move, or during the turn in which you made a followed up move, frenzied model has a +1 modifier to attacks. However, a frenzied rider does not confer this modifier to their mount and vice versa. How do you know whether it's the mount or the rider? So, for instance, Khorne, it gives the unit... Well, actually, it says mounts aren't affected by marks, doesn't it? I think somewhere in Chaos. During a turn... So, actually, Frenzy now only gives you +1 attacks when you make a charge or a follow-up. Now, that's interesting because... Oh, no, the follow-up is the 2-inch one, isn't it? Sorry, it's not a pursuit because you pursue after somebody who's fallen back in good order. Right. So you get +1 to attack. Yeah. When you charge or... So actually, if you're stalled... But wouldn't you have lost frenzy? I guess it's weird, this bit, because it's like I don't really know when that would actually apply. The only circumstance that this really stops is if, like, you beat somebody, and I mean, I guess, like, shield. So if you attack somebody with shield wall, you beat them, they get pushed back 2 inches. But then you make a follow-up, and if they've got shield wall, then you don't get pushed back 2 inches. So you can't make a follow-up. So next turn you're still frenzied, but you don't get +1 attack. I think that's an unnecessary extra level of detail that is unnecessary, really, at the moment. It just seems a bit like, why do we need to nerf frenzy? It's okay. Like, it's not a problem. Pretty sure the charge thing stops the charging unit from having increased initiative when fighting other combatants. Oh, is that what you think they're going for? Change the second sentence of the first paragraph as follows. Models gain a modifier during the combat phase of a turn in which they charged. No, they literally just to represent the models gain a modifier to their initiative characteristics during the combat phase of a turn in which they charged. It's the same thing, because essentially you're in a turn, you have charged, and therefore you gain an initiative modifier either plus 3, 4, or 1 or 2, dependent on whatever. So I don't think, yeah, there might be more stuff on charging later. I've heard there is more stuff on charging, so, but then it should be in movement, or maybe it should be there, shouldn't it? I don't know. Anyway, impact hits are resolved against the charged unit when the combat is chosen before issuing challenges. Hit automatically and use the unmodified strength of the mod making them. That was leaked beforehand. I fully endorse this change. It absolutely makes sense that you kind of smash into the unit first and then a challenge happens. Impetuous. You've got to take a leadership test. It doesn't say using own leadership, so you can use your general's leadership. So Impetuous really isn't a problem anymore at all, actually. Even for orcs and goblins, because you've got rank modifiers and stuff. Most Impetuous you'll be like leadership 8, 9, maybe even 10 sometimes. So, like, Dragon Princes didn't really have a problem anyway. Well, Dragon Princes certainly don't have a problem now because of leadership 9. So Impetuous is way less is way less of a penalty than it used to be. Large target. Large targets do not benefit from partial full cover. That's the same as it was. In addition, a unit can draw a line of sight to a large target over or through another unit, vice versa. Finally, you can shoot with one. A unit that shoots at a large target can shoot with 1 additional rank. So that's changed as well, because it used to be if you're a large target, everybody can see it, so the entire unit can fire at them. Now it's an additional rank. For example, a unit armored crossbows can shoot with its first 2 ranks when shooting at a large target, or with its first 3 if it's also standing on a hill. So if you're on a hill, you're shooting at a large target. That makes no sense, though, because if you're in an elevated position, why would you get more shots off against something that's big? Because surely you get more shots off at something that's big if you're on the ground, because you can see more of. Do you know what I mean? The target's there. Whereas if you're, I don't understand that. Thematically, that makes no sense, but you know, whatever. It's fine. That lessens the impact of massive poisoned units. So previously, you'd have like a unit of, I don't know, like 80 skeleton bowmen with the amulet of the serpent in a little character that gave them all poisoned. Or you'd have 120 goblins with the banner of the spider, with the spider banner, which would give them all poisoned attacks or something like that. It's not nerfed gutter runners because they're still skirmishers. So technically, skirmishers an entire unit of skirmishers can see a large target still. So, but gutter runners don't need nerfing because Skaven don't need nerfing at all. Poisoned attacks, they've changed that. For each hit roll of 6, they may apply a +2 modifier to one of their rolls to. For each hit roll of 6, a model with a poisoned attack makes, they may apply a +2 modifier to one of their rolls to wound. Okay, that grammatically makes sense. You just get +2 to wound. It's not auto wound anymore. I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. I mean, it makes poison attacks much more worthwhile, actually. For instance, the Chaos, what's it called? Amulet of the Crow or something, which gives you regen 5 up and poison attacks. You'll probably actually see, well, you saw that getting played anyway, because, you know, but, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. Regen. Change the rules follow. Immediately after a wound is lost, but before models with 0 wounds remaining are removed from play, a model with a special rule may make regen save by rolling d6, blah, 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 blah. Regen save, lost wounds, rules that affect armor values do not. Alright, so they're doing the same thing as ward saves, so basically anything that affects armor value. Because they basically gave regen and ward saves, they were all an armor value. And then there were things that affected armor value. So some people, like for instance, Plague of Rust, some people were arguing that Plague of Rust affects your armor value, but your ward save armor value and your regen save armor value, because they're all called armor value, which I totally accept. That's how the rules were, written. I mean, I've never played that, but that was I can understand that justification. So they've clarified it here. Stomp attacks must be made in combat, made last, initiative 1. Oh no, after all attacks have been made, including attacks made at initiative 1, hit automatically, use the unmodified strength. So then now Stomp is no longer initiative 1, Stomp is initiative 0, and basically impact hits are initiative 11. Sort of. Which is how it should be. Stupidity. I think I changed that because I'm sure it used to be using their own leadership. Stupidity. Against the unit's leadership characteristic. If the test has failed, the unit becomes stupid. Alright. Test against its leadership. No, that's the same. Test has failed, the unit comes to a unit that has succumbed to stupidity. So they used to be able to, if you failed your stupid test, you could only make a move of up to your normal movement forwards. Now you can't move, can't shoot, can't cast spells, can't dispel, and must hold if charged by an enemy. So your stupid now is hugely more impactful than it was, because previously you could move forward a bit, you could still cast spells, you could still shoot, you could still do a few bits and bobs, whereas now it's like it just turns off the unit. Why is that? delete the pop-up note, thanks. A unit which consists entirely of models with swift stride increases its maximum possible charge range by 3, and before making a charge for the opposite roll, may choose to apply a d6 modifier to the result. Right. So that's slightly different. So the d6 for swift stride is now part of the charge roll. So I think what they're trying to do here is swift stride. Now you roll 3 dice and you drop the lowest one. And anything that allows you to re-roll charge dice, you know, that kind of thing allows you to re-roll, because there's no like specific additional swift stride dice that you have to roll. You just get an extra d6 to roll with, basically. Which is what this seems to be implying, but I'm not sure that's how it'll be received. But I hope that's how it is, because it'll just quick up the game, speed up the game. Vanguard. Add the following: units that make a Vanguard move cannot declare a charge during their first turn. Okay, fine. Warband cannot use this modifier to its leadership should it ever choose to make a restraint test, or if it's impetuous when testing to see if it must. Oh, that's interesting. You know, I said about goblins not being bothered by impetuous. Well, they can't use their rank modifiers against impetuous, which is interesting. So you can't use warband for restraint, impetuous. Yeah, restraint or impetuous. But you could for stupid, hypothetically. I don't think that applies to anybody, but... quick turn, unless it marches, the units in open order may pivot around the centre, but change the facing to 90 degrees after moving during the remaining move subphase. Right. Why? What's different about that? Let's have a quick look. 183. Quick turn. After moving, unless it charged, marched or fled, a unit is in open order may pivot around the centre. Unless it marched. Eh? Okay. After, so if it charged, then it moved during the move charging, so it didn't move during the remaining move subphase. So you can't use open order to do that. Or fled. So, but you can do a quick turn if you fled now. I think that seems to be the implication of that. So if you're fleeing and you're fast cav, you can still do a quick turn. Which I guess actually makes a bit of sense, really, doesn't it? Because fast cavalry are forever running away, but they're running away strategically. It's kind of part of their role. But this is just all open order, isn't it? It's not a fast cavalry thing. All open order. Well, I suppose light troops are always kind of, yeah, it's part of the skirmish. I don't know about that. Skirmishers will maintain its close command, at which point the models will separate, moving the smallest amount possible to once again adopt skirmish formation. Okay, so when skirmishers are out of combat, you then just move one a little bit to make it look like they're skirmishing. Although, you know, what the rules writers think they've written is that if you've got like skirmish and open order, for instance, keywords. If you're ranked up in serried ranks, that's technically open order, because that's how open order looks. And then if you have to then move a model or space them out a little bit to adopt skirmish formation, actually you don't. It's not an exclusive thing. Skirmish says nothing about them having to be separated. So you could just arrange a unit in a normal block unit sort of thing and then say that these are skirmishing. Skirmishers may charge an enemy that's visible to more than half its models when charges are declared. So, okay, add the following to the end of this. If any skirmishers are unable to form up the unit because it's lost its coherency, as described on page 184. Yep. Yeah, I thought that was already part of the rules, wasn't it? Let's change skirmisher. So the charge thing is new. So a unit of skirmishers may charge an enemy unit that's visible to more than half of its models when charges are declared. So you're just going to have to be a bit more clever in terms of placing your Pegasus Knights. But seriously, I don't see this as being a massive problem because you can always like lump them up in such a way that they can all see pretty much everything. You know, there's loads of like you could just put them in a star formation so this one can see out of all the, and that one can see between. Do you know what I mean? You can just do that. But considering skirmishers have all got 360 line of sight anyway, you can draw a you can draw a line of sight out of their bumhole if you really want to. Regular infantry rules. Press of battle. In the heat of battle, orderly ranks become a swirling melee. Except when it charges, the fighting rank has this rule and is arrayed in combat order, is not 1 but 2 ranks deep. What the Alright, let's try that again. Change the entry. No, this is quite a big rule change, it feels to me. Where's page 190? Here we go. So, they've got regular infantry rules there. So this regular infantry used to have no rules. Now they have rules. So buckle up. In the heat of battle, so they have 3 rules: press of battle, massed infantry, and parry. Oh, this just makes Cathay so much better. They've made Cathay too good. Like, they're not totally broken. They have holes. There's ways to beat them, but honestly. Right, with sword and shield, warriors attack while engaged in combat. Model with this rule. This is like the 8th ed rule, isn't it? A model with this rule is equipped and chooses with its hand weapon and shield, improves its armor value of 1 to a maximum of 3. So, chosen warriors of chaos now have a 2-up save in combat, which is absolutely what they should. So well done, GW, you've finally done the right thing. And also it makes like Empire Swordsmen slightly more worthwhile because they've got a 4-up save in combat. It means like your Bretonia Foot Knights now have a 3-up save in combat, which makes them, you know, fairly useful to take. It devalues like most elven stuff because sword and board isn't really one of their things. It also helps out stuff like Marauders a bit as well because they've now got a 4-up save in combat, and it just makes your yeah, I mean, a lot of units that have spears and shields also have hand weapons, so you could choose to adopt the hand weapons, but remember it locks you into hand weapons pretty much for the whole combat. You also have, I don't know why I'm doing them in reverse order, but I am. Massed infantry, numbers alone can sometimes overcome the foe. When determining combat results, if one side has a higher unit strength than the other, includes 1 or more units with this rule, that side may claim a bonus. So basically, the side that has more infantry than the other gets +1 to their combat result for just having more infantry than the other. So not only have they taken away +1 combat res for close order for big monsters, they've also given the big unit of infantry +1 to combat res. So literally the worst place that your big monsters can be is in a big block of infantry because you've lost +1 to your combat res. And so let's let's do the mathematics, whatever. So let's say you've charged a unit, you get the champion challenges you out. You're going to get 6 combat res maximum. You're going to lose 1 to massed infantry. You're probably going to lose 1 to a banner. You might lose 3 to rank bonus, and you're going to lose 1 to close order, which means with a musician, you are losing that round of combat by 1. Whereas previously, you'd have got your close order bonus, and you wouldn't have got this massed infantry thing, so you'd have won by 2. So it's gone from a win the combat by 2 to, and that that includes you actually rolling dice reasonably, averagely, to kill the champion and get maximum overkill. So the worst thing that you can now possibly do is charge your big monsters into big blocks of infantry. Absolutely terrible idea. Unless they've got tons of impact hits, totally not worth doing. But if they do have tons of impact hits, like your Stonehorns, actually, Frostlord on Stonehorn looks a bit more attractive now. Because he does impact hits, so you know if he gets challenged out, it doesn't really matter because he's probably already killed like 4 or 5 things with the impact hits. So, interesting. I'm getting a really tickly throat, so apologies. I might have to cough in a bit. Press of battle. Right. Except when it charged, the fighting rank of a unit that has this rule has a combat rank of 2. So the fighting rank is the first 2 ranks of any infantry model unit apart from when they charge. So if you charge them, they get to fight back with 2 ranks, and if they've got spears, you get another rank on top. So you get 3 ranks for spears basically, 2 ranks otherwise. So you have to do an awful lot of damage really to kill off enough that they're not going to get any attacks back. This set of rules has significantly increased the ability of infantry. Dwarves will be sat there rubbing their, I was going to say little hands, but they don't, they have massive. Will be sat there loving their massive gold encrusted hands together, rubbing their massive gold encrusted hands together with glee, because this really increases dwarven capabilities quite a lot. Especially like great weapons stuff, because essentially if you're fighting in 2 ranks with great weapons, that's real nasty. So, you know. Let's hope they haven't done anything with great weapons. Quick, have they? No. So, great weapons are still nasty. Anyway. Weapons of war. A war machine can freely pivot out of the centre immediately before shooting and may make a follow-up move as normal. Right, this is good. It used to say war machines can pivot at any point. Now they can only pivot before shooting. You used to be able to do real janky shit with war machines because you could literally pivot the model whenever you like. So you could pivot... Oh, sorry. So you could pivot one with a long base so it's in range, and then pivot it to the side where the enemy is shooting so it's out of range. Little annoying things like that. So that's gone. A character that's joined cannot be targeted by enemy shooting unless they're fire than 5 and controlling player must first allocate hits to the unit until 1 hit has been allocated to each model it contains. If a character is hit by shooting the 5 more, look out, sir. The character is hit by shooting there, and if there are 5 or more, the controlling blade must first allocate hits to the units. So you don't get lookout, sir, if there's 5 or more, basically, I think. Sorry, you don't get lookout, sir, if there aren't 5 or more, for some reason. If there are only 4 people, sorry, if there are only 3 people in the unit, they won't dive in front of you. But if there's another one, if there's a 4th one, poor old Jerry, he'll get thrown in front. What? Wasn't that already the rule? What is this? So basically that's just said if you kill the if you kill a monster before the mount can fight, it can't fight. Which I'll reread it. I might have misread that because that's 211. If either participant in the challenge is mounted, their mount must direct its attacks against it. If the rival participant is slain before the mount attacks are made, the mount attacks may be made against the rival as normal for the purposes of overkill. Yes. So what they're saying is, if either party, so the mount can't now make. Okay, so if you've got a mounted hero in a challenge, if the hero kills the character and does so at an initiative step before the mount then just can't attack. So big monsters are, I don't want to say dead, but they're certainly less impactful now, especially against big units of infantry. So that kind of, you know, that mortuary cult list with a load of necrosphinxes, that's DOA, I think, pretty much, because. Well, it's not. No, it's not DOA. Sorry, it's now more challenging, especially if you're up against a unit with big blocks, an army with lots of big blocks of infantry because they're going to be pretty difficult to shift, really. This is putting the pressure back on infantry to be the mainstay of an army, which is exactly what it should be. It's a rank and flank game. We want big blocks of infantry, and this is all a step in the right direction. Flail is the same. Strength and armor bane only apply when it's charged. I didn't know flails had. I didn't know flails had. No, they didn't have armor bane. Oh, they've given flails armor bane when they charge. Nice. Okay. More than one combat weapon. If a unit is engaged in combat, you must choose a weapon to fight when it's of each and every choose and fight combat subphase. Oh, cool. So they can change their weapons in between rounds of combat now. So that thing I said about choosing, don't worry about that. You must choose which weapon it will fight with when its combat is chosen during step point, and every choose and fight combat and every choose and fight combat subphase. Is that what that step 1.1 is? Choose and fight combat subphase. What an absolute mouthful. 213. Oh. Hold on. Must use the same weapon. Use that combat. Use... unless the weapon itself states the unit cannot change weapons if the weapon chosen for the first round of combat must be the first round fought following a charge. Unit cannot change. So that said, if the unit is engaged with, you must choose which weapon it will fight with when its combat is chosen during step 1.1 of each and every choose and fight. But then that doesn't change that bullet point. I don't know what they're trying to say there. I think they're trying to say you can pick every turn, but they haven't said that because they've not corrected, they've not amended the right paragraph. So we've got to assume that's deliberate. So what are they trying to do? You will choose which weapon it will fight with when its combat is chosen during step 1.1 of each and every choose and fight combat subphase. No, I don't see that as... That doesn't... is chosen during each and every subphase. A unit cannot change, but they haven't deleted that, so it says it can't change weapons. So you can choose, but you have to choose the same thing. So what's the... that's a cock-up. That is a cock-up right there. Halberd gets +2. He gets an extra AP against enemy models that wield a charge. So if you charge with the Halberd, you get AP2 on the charge. Did they have Armor Bane 1 as well? Is that a thing? They did have Armor Bane 1, yeah. Just, and everything else is the same. They just get extra AP when they charge, which is nice. Morningstar, they get Armor Bane. They've added Armor Bane 1 on the charge. Lance. So Lance can okay. Strength and armor piercing modifiers apply only against enemy models the wielder charged that turn. So it used to be the case that if you had a unit of cavalry that charged another unit, and then another unit of cavalry somehow charged them, whatever, but you didn't charge. Yeah, so you followed up and pursued. Not followed up, you pursued against, or you followed up if you're a Cathayan cavalryman, because you still get your charge bonuses. Anyway, you followed up against a unit, and then you countercharged them, and then you got countercharged next turn by a unit of cavalry. You can't use your lance bonuses against the unit of cavalry. There's got to be against the thing that you pursued. Maximum armor value. Infantry or cavalry can never have an armor value better than 2. Chariot, monster, or war machine can never have an armor value better of 3. So that's nerfed high elf dragons a little bit, but not a lot. I don't know why they've done that. I don't care about monsters and stuff having a 2 up armor save. Dead or fled. Yeah, that's in the new match playbook. The dead or fled So basically, previously, if you were down to lower than, sorry, 25% or less starting wounds. Oh no, they've added wounds, didn't they? Because it used to just be unit strength, didn't it? I think. Let's just have a quick check. 286. About there. Oh no, way lower. 286. Dead or fled. Yeah, it's just unit strength. Cool. So that's out of the new handbook. So it's wounds or unit strength. Down to 25%, you get 50% of its. So actually, monsters again are less valuable because previously you had to kill them to get anything, and now if you do a lot of wounds to them, you still get half their points. So that's pretty good. Pillar of Fire, it scatters. Now, same damage, but it scatters now. And now we've got some changes in casting values. So I think we need to go and have a look and see what they are. There's actually some points values changes as well. So this is a proper, like, you know, deep dive rebalance sort of thing that they're doing in this particular FAQ. It's quite a big one. I think this actually signals that they're quite happy with the state of the game and that they're prepared to start tweaking with the core mechanics. They're quite happy with, like, how it's being played on the table and, like, gamer understanding. And now they're tweaking core mechanics to try and improve game balance. Actually, I think quite sensibly. But anyway, so Arcane Urgency is now 9. Curse of Cowardly Flight is now 8. Arcane Urgency was 10. Now remember that a lot of wizards are getting nerfs to. So essentially, level 4 used to get +4 to cast. Now they only get +2. So they've effectively lost 2 of their casting value. So actually, I think quite a lot of the higher value stuff we'll probably see coming down. Arcane Urgency comes down to 9. So that means this double move thing, you know, previously a level 4 needed to roll a 6. It's come down to a 9 and they only get +2. So now they need a 7 to get it off. So again, that's why that extra +1, if you can generate an extra +1 from somewhere, Cathay can do piece of piss, but other factions can as well. I just mentioned Cathay because they seem to have everything. Anyway, but that's back down to a 6. So those extra +1s, if you can generate them, are like massively, massively valuable. Curse of Cowardly Flight is now an 8. It probably was a 9. Yep. Steed of Shadows from Demonology comes down to 8. That was 9. Yeah. Demonic Vessel, that was 10. Definitely. Yeah. Vortex of Chaos. Template scatters, difficult terrain, D6 +1, strength 3, AP nothing. Danger. Oh no, it's no. Oh, a Vortex of Chaos. They've suddenly decided we don't like it being dangerous. We just want it to be difficult. So it's now a difficult vortex rather than a Vortex of Chaos. Sounds quite dangerous. On the sort of difficult, dangerous scale, where do you think Vortex of Chaos is? You can choose weapons, but can choose different in subsequent fights. I don't know, because they didn't remove the paragraph that says you can't switch between. So they've said that you choose every single fight, but they've also said that they haven't removed the paragraph that says you can't switch. So they've sort of said you can choose, but they've said you can't have a different weapon. So you can choose to have the same weapon. It's sort of, I don't think that's what they meant. I think your interpretation is right, Dean. I think they meant that you can choose every round now, pretty much, which, you know, makes sense. Well, look, thematically, the only thing that makes sense is at any point you can choose to drop your big weapon and pick up a hand weapon, right? Because most, like, you know, if you're in a shield wall, you know, you'll have your big massive shield, you'll have a seax, which is like a dagger-ish thing that's about that big. Here, like in behind or like maybe sometimes here. so you can get it, or maybe like round the back so you can get it out, or maybe over the shoulder, but you don't want it there because then your enemy can just get it and stab you with it. So like it's probably down here. But anyway, you've got a seax that you can get hold of and then start stabbing. So if you go from spears and your opponent closes, you can essentially just lob your spear, draw your seax, and then start stabbing. So like, you know, that I think switching between your main weapon and your hand weapon at any point perfectly makes sense thematically. I think going from hand weapon to great weapon is a bit dumb. So if you've got a unit that's like hand weapon and shield, they go, hold a second, drop the hand weapon and shield, scurry around and find out where they drop the great weapon, then get it up and then start smashing. Like, that seems a bit weird, but whatever. Infernal Gateway, that's come down to 9. Flaming Sword, that was Flaming Sword. Flaming Sword was that a 9? I can't remember actually. It's probably an 8, but Flaming. Hold on, where was Flaming Sword? 327. It's battle magic, isn't it? Is it? Here we go. 8. Oh. Getting confused. Summon Elemental Spirit. Difficult terrain. Was it dangerous before? 327. Dangerous. Right, so dangerous been downgraded to difficult for Elemental Spirit. Earthen Ramparts has come down to a 9. Travel Mystical Pathway. Target for any units not fleeing. Completely within 12 inches, but not within 6 inches of any enemy models. Right, so they're introducing this language called completely within. In AOS, there's a difference, or there was a difference at some point between within and wholly within. Wholly within meant that, you know, if you have to move a model so it's wholly within, like, so these rats are, as they're based, let's say these rats are within 6 inches of each other, but they're not wholly within 6 inches of each other because the gap in the middle is 5.9 inches or whatever. Now they're wholly within 6 inches. You see the difference? Wholly within, within. Wholly within, within. So basically within meant that you could add the size of the bases, which for something like Travel Mystical Pathway was pretty horrible because well, basically you could replace a unit. So essentially you could go from like here to, I'll get another coaster here, and the corner to corner distance, that was the only bit that had to be 12 inches, whereas now it says wholly within, so it's like that. So you've got much less range on your teleport from Travel Mystical Pathway. I would say that's made Travel Mystical Pathway is just objectively shit now. Because like, if it's whole now in Old World, they've decided to use the word completely instead of wholly, but I think they're trying to convey the same concept. Completely within 12 inches is objectively shit for, let's say, an infantry unit, because the infantry unit itself will be approximately, I don't know, let's say it's 4 deep, it's 4 inches deep. If it's like using this to move forwards, you've basically got to take 8 inches off because you've got to be completely within. So literally the gap in between, so literally it's just moved forward 6 inches, which is less than a march. But I guess it doesn't count as marching. So I guess you could use that to like teleport around a unit of archers. But if it's completely with, hold on a minute, let's read that again. You may replace it anywhere completely within 12 inches of its original location. Completely within 12 inches. Yeah, okay. Shield of Saffrey has gone down. Confounding Convocation. Right, so I think what would be... Plague of Rust is the same. High Magic Shield of Saffrey has come down to an 8. 5 up ward. It's only until the end of this turn now, so it doesn't count in your opponent's turn. Convocation is now an 8. Confounding convocation. No, it's not that one. There's more convocations. Confounding is now 8, so you can make them subjects as stupid, which is way more impactful now, so that's interesting. Mirage is down to 10. So what's the best spell lord now? That's another video for another day. I think it's now high magic, to be honest. Because most of them aren't massively difficult to... Well, actually, no. They're actually all quite difficult to cast now, aren't they? That's interesting. Apart from, of course, for Cathay, because Cathay are the best wizards in the world. Even better than High Elves, despite the fact that they're not, according to the narrative. Law police. Yeah. Whatever. Deathly Cabals come down to 8. Spiritual Vortex. Curse of Years. Change the spells. Casting. What was Curse of Years? 333. 333. Curse of Years is -1 weapon skill to strength, weapon skill and toughness. It's come down to a 9. That's good. I quite like that. I quite like that spell. These spells have come down in value. What's the play? So Foot of Gork was probably dangerous and now it's difficult instead. Ogre Blade has gone up to 75 points from 65. That's quite a big change actually, because there's a lot of cool other items, enchanted stuff that's 35 points that you can't change now. Ruby Ring of Ruin has gone to 35 points and it's got a power level of 1 instead of 2 now. So because everybody takes Ruby Ring of Ruin, they've decided to make it worse. A note to the rules writers, everybody's taking Ruby Ring of Ruin because it's a bound magic missile that anybody can take. Other factions have their own bound magic missiles. Nerfing Ruby Ring of Ruin is a nerf to those factions that don't have their own bound magic missiles. Well done. Casting a spell. Change the first parameter. Divide the castings and add to the result. Oh, that's a quick reference sheet. Okay. Ooh. What page are we on? Jesus heck. Alright, pardon me. Oh. It's a very hot day here in Blighty. You remember that level in Mario? If any of you are old enough to remember, there's a level in Super Mario where the sun is trying to kill you. I feel like today's that day. Right. What happens if a scatter roll causes any part of the object to cross the edge of the battlefield? It's gone. Of course. Any part of an object. That's a weird wording. I wonder what they're getting at with an object. If a model was required to take a leadership test, can it use the leadership of a different model, the general? Oh! When the rules state a model must make a leadership test using its own leadership, it must use its own leadership. That's got bigger impacts than I think, actually, because there's a lot of... Alright, hold on. Okay. All friendly units within the command range can use their leadership characteristic instead of their own. So when it says you must take a leadership test using its own leadership, well, this rule said I don't have to use my own leadership. I can use my generals instead. Thanks. It's going to be quite a lot of these. Oh no, 23. To make a leadership test roll, 2d6 to the model's leadership value. Okay, fine. So we're just going to have to be, I guess, really careful about reading when it says a model must take a leadership test using its own leadership. Look, there are so many circumstances in which you can't use Inspiring Presence. In fact, I think you can't use Inspiring Presence more than you can. So I think, really, I know nobody from GW is watching this, but if at some point they might do, then really what we need is, Inspiring Presence to be rewritten so it just lists the occasions on which you can use Inspiring Presence. And I think actually from the kind of GW, rules creep perspective of selling the latest miniatures, which I know is a thing that you've got to deal with, it makes sense to strip down the rules because then you can give other factions boosts to it later on down the line. So making the rules more compact or applying a narrower range of circumstances means that you can, for other factions, increase these circumstances later. The counters being used even if the test failed. Some single-use special rules require a leadership test. The counters having been used even if this test is failed. Yeah, he's thinking about the Tomb Kings. So the Tomb Kings have an ability to essentially use. No, it's not a leadership test to do double resurrection, is it? Because you do your resurrection and you take a leadership test, and then if successful, maybe he is thinking of that. I don't know. I can't think of any other examples actually. But can different saves be combined together to one of two ward saves? Can they be? No, of course they can't. How many spells can a wizard attempt to cast? Up to the level of wizardry. If a remains in play spell with two casting values is cast at high value, what is it? Yeah, okay. So if if there's a remains in play spell, it's got two effects. It's cast on the higher level. Do you have to roll to try and dispel it on the higher level? No, roll to dispel it on its normal level. How many remains in play? As many as you wish, or as many as your opponent has in play, and as many as you are able. So I think it's a bit weird though that they've limited the number of spells that you can cast, but basically you can have one wizard try and dispel all of the spells. So I think that's a bit odd, but whatever. If a single model unit straddles two arcs of an enemy unit it wishes to charge, is it always considered to be in the arc that gives it the least advantage? No, this is only the case when you cannot determine which arc it's within. If it's clear that the majority of a charging unit is within one arc, even if that unit consists of only one model, it will charge into that arc. Yeah. So basically that bit where it says, well, I mean, I don't know why this is a clarification. The picture's pretty clear. If you're literally in the middle of two arcs, you go for the worst one, right? If, however, it's clearly one or the other, then you go into that one, obviously. If a unit charges an enemy that's defending a low linear obstacle, can it stop on top? No, it says so. Which is what they've said. No, we've already told you. Can a model that chooses to... I don't know whether they make these up. Anyway, can a model that chooses to stand and shoot use a magic missile or... No, because it says so. Models cannot use magic missiles or magic vortices after marching, but does this include bound spells? Yes, of course it does. If a unit's fighting rank is engaged with... Well, because it says you can't cast them. Like, I mean... It doesn't say... Anyway, if a unit's fighting rank is engaged with two enemy units, one of which is a lone character engaged with a challenge, can models within the unit's fighting rank ignore the character, even if they're closer to it than to the other enemy unit or other attack slots? Models not engaged with a challenge, direct them against the other unit they're engaged with. Yeah, that's what I would have said to that, and yeah, that's what they said. So basically, no, you don't have to lose your attacks because the single lone character is a bit closer than the other unit. If it's in a challenge. Can a close order unit of just one model claim close order? Yes, well, provided it has a unit strength of now 10, which I can't think of any monsters that do. Ooh, actually, maybe the steam tank. Oh, I think maybe the steam tank might be 10 wounds. I'll just check that quick. Chariots. 10 wounds. Hooray! Oh no, it's heavy chariot. So it's unit strength, what? 4? 5? I can't remember. Heavy chariots have their own unit strength, whatever that is. So it's not unit strength 10. No, that's a... Can you... Is there a sub-faction where you can mount something in it? Can you... No, because it'd still be a heavy chariot. Like, it doesn't change the fact that it's a heavy chariot. Shut up, Dan. No, no, no. Right. When you get counter charges, is this roll counted as a charge roll? That feels big. Right. Lance, so you don't have to move 3. What was the thing about having to get a charge range of 3 for some reason or other? I can't remember what it was. Is it impact hits? I think impact hits you have to go... impact hits. 3 inches or more. Okay. So if you've got counter charge... Oh no. Impact hits can be made by a charging model that move 3 inches or more than are in base contact with the enemy. Yeah, so you do get that with... So that doesn't affect that. I don't know why that makes a difference. Somebody cleverer than me must tell me the answer. Because I can't think of anything that, you know, needs to see some dice on the charge roll. Because the things that impact hits, for instance, that say you've got to move 3 inches, well, it doesn't mean your charge roll has to be 3 inches. It just means you have to move 3 inches. And a counter charge means you move 3 inches. Like, taking impact hits away from counter charging units, though, seems a bit daft anyway. But I don't know why they're... I don't know what the context is here. Like, I wish they put a bit more context in here, like what that person's actually asking. Because this is just a question, but it doesn't tell you, like, what they're really getting at. War beasts, fear, flaming. If they're immune to psychology, do they fear models with flaming? Yes. That's apparently a change to last time. Where are we? Page 12. That was in... It was around here. Can't find it. Fear model. Okay, so they've added a bit more context, hopefully. Fear are normally, even though models that cause fear are normally immune to it, the rule that swarms and war beasts fear models with the flaming attacks is an exception called out in those troop types' unique rules. So basically, whether they're immune to psychology, whether they cause fear, whatever, war beasts and swarms still fear flaming. And so must react to flaming units in the same way that anybody would react to any non-fear unit would react to a fear unit. So it's a bit of a special fear sort of thing. If some models are... Oh no. Units with motley crew can use the armor value of the majority. What if there is an even number of different armor values? In such case, use the better one if it's even. Yeah, of course. If the winning side of a combat includes one or more models on each side that cause fear or terror, take -1 to leadership. No, because they don't suffer fear. Models that cause fear don't suffer terror. They suffer fear from terror causing models. Can my battle standard bearer has a higher leadership than my general? No. As stated on page 203, the general is the character with the highest leadership. If this means not upgrading the character with the highest leadership in your army to be your battle standard bearer so that they can be your general, so be it. This is particularly satisfying to me because I remember posting a comment about somebody was writing a list on a video, and I posted a comment saying that list isn't legal because you've made the battle standard bearer the highest leadership model. You've made the highest leadership model the battle standard bearer, and they should be the general. And they were like, no, because it's a battle standard bearer upgrade, so it can't be the general because it's a battle standard bearer, and therefore it was a high elf list, I think, and they'd taken a handmaiden as the general, and taken a which basically means if you take the handmaiden as a general, so you can make sisters core, you can't take a BSB because the noble that's the BSB is leadership 9, so and the handmaiden's leadership 8, so you can't do that. You just so you can't have a BSB if you want the sisters as core, which is a weird kind of loop of rules, which I really don't think was intended. But what they should just do is have it a bit like Graveguard and Whites and stuff, in that if you have you can have a unit of sisters core per unit of handmaids, or just like if you have one or more handmaids, you can have a unit of sisters as core, or something like that. There's a better, more elegant way of doing that. That's than the way they have. Can a character that's joined a unit models of a different troop type be targeted for if a light chariot joins regular infantry? Can they be targeted? Yes, and they don't get lookout sir either. Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's correct. If a character joins a unit that carries a magic standard, do its effect character to the character? Yeah, of course they do. If a spell arcane urgency is used to move you random, can the unit move into contact with an enemy unit? No, because it can only move into contact with a random unit during the mandatory, compulsory move subphase. If it's moving in the remaining moves, it can't move in, because it can't move in and charge like it could do in the compulsory move subphase, which is a rule that's already, I think that's pretty clear. But can a unit upon an earthen ramparts has been cast make a counter charge? That's a good question. That should actually be, that's not an FAQ, that's an errata, because actually rules as written they can. So they need to change the rule there and not just clear it up in an FAQ. So the difference between an FAQ and an errata is an FAQ is basically, it's the rules are already written down. We're just sort of explaining them in a new context, which is why I think there should be much more context in here. They do like lots of for example. So this is called contextualization. They do it. So I wish the question had the context a bit more. I know this document will get a lot longer then, but I think it would be better. Because basically, like whenever people like me do a video on this, we go through and we read the pink bits. When deploying armies, must units be placed completely within a deployment zone? Yes, of course they must. Who's asked that? Let me add them. If a unit that cars charges an enemy unit, must it follow all the rules behind defended, even though there's no such physical terrain? Ooh, okay, that's actually that should be in the errata as well, because rules is written. But anyway, so essentially in the last FAQ, or in the last errata or whatever, they said if you're attacking something, if you're making an attack that requires base-to-base contact, for instance, stomp and impact hits, you actually have to be in base-to-base contact. You can't count as being, as in, defending a low linear obstacle. Now they've gone even further and said stuff that counts as being defined behind a low linear obstacle also counts as not being in combat, not being in base-to-base, despite the fact that you are. That's cool. Gee, I wonder if Cathay have an even better version of that spell that's cast on the same value. What happens if Skull of Transmogrification is in a bound spell? Well done, G-Dub. This is exactly the right answer. After testing against the item's power level in place of its level of wizardry, it may be turned to an inanimate frog, rendering it useless until it turns back. During each start turn subphase, you may roll a d6 for each transmogrified item to see if it returns to normal. That's really cool. I prefer that now. Because if you think, if you've got a Ruby Ring of Ruin or whatever, you can roll, now that is power level 1, so if you roll a 2 or more, the Ruby Ring of Ruin turns into like a little model frog. Then the character's casts a fireball, and then, what? Why have I got a frog? Where's my ring? Why? That's cool. I like that. Well done, G-Dub. Very, very good, very good. A little bit of humour there and a good rules clarification, actually. Makes sense. Right. There's a lot here, isn't there, really? Right, Forces of Fantasy, FAQ. This is going to be a long video. FAQ and Errata. Okay, Anvil. So, interestingly, Anvil of Doom power level goes down to 2. It's currently got a power level of 3. So, I'd imagine that the Khemri Casket of Souls thing will also have a bit of a downgrade as well. And I think bound spells in general are just going to get a bit of a downgrade to their power level to reflect the same thing as the Vizards. So that's pretty cool. They're changing some of the... So the Rune of Oath and Steel is now 8 and 11. What was it? 8 and 12? Was it? Or was it 9 and 12? I don't know. If the bound spell target you friendly unit may reroll any failed armor save roll. Right, hold on. Bear with. Let's get the books. Let's get all the books. All the books. Where is it? Army book. We're doing good guys, aren't we? Forces of Fantasy. It's a character. Oath. Oh no, it's 7. So they've made the bottom level harder and the top level easier. Target friendly unit may reroll any failed armor save rolls. Reroll any failed armor save rolls. Oh, right, they're changing the text so it says 8 or more. I see, sorry, big thick. They've not changed the effect. They've changed the Hearth and Home is now 8. That's gone up. I guess, okay. So they've made Dwarves massively better with the new infantry rules. Like, massively better. Hammerers now have Gromrel armor as well, which means you get to reroll armor saves of 1, I think. Something like that. Runes of Protection, 6 at ward against any wounds that were caused by a non-magical enemy attack. Page 24. I don't know what the Runes of Protection... Something in the back of my head. 6 at ward against wounds suffered that were caused by non-magical enemy attack. That were caused by non... She has a 6 at ward against any wounds that were caused by non-magical enemy attack. Absolute bellends. They've written the same thing again. Models with this special rule. This unit. Okay. What some people have been doing is they've been putting characters in Ironbreakers and saying, oh, I've got 6 at ward now because look, they're in the unit and it says this unit. Right, it's just Ironbreakers have a 6 at ward. Fine. Trollhammer Torpedo is no longer dwarf crafted, which means you do suffer penalties to stand and shoot with it. And it's cumbersome, which means you're -2 when you stand and shoot with it. And its strength characteristic is now 5 instead of 8. That is a pretty significant downgrade for them, actually. Pretty significant. Let's find the rules. There we go. So it's strength 5, AP 3. Now, yeah, that is a really massive downgrade for the troll. I mean, to be fair, the Drake guns are really good anyway. Like, they're really good. So, essentially, this is like, do you want to pay the upgrade for the Trollhammer Torpedo? Which is, it's got the same strength now, strength 5, AP, but strength 5, AP 3 means you're much less likely to shoot at those big monsters. And actually, you're probably better off sticking with the stand and shoot effects. Because this has got quick shot. Oh, dwarf crafted. Yeah, so dwarf crafted means you don't have to take -1 to stand and shoot. Quick shot means you can stand and shoot regardless of the range. You know, I still think they're very good value for money, points wise. And actually, the main reason for that is because the Drake guns are so good. It's not just a carrier for Trollhammer torpedoes, even though that's how some people played them. They're not. So they've done a step to kind of make that clear, which is quite cool. I don't think you'll see any fewer units of Iron Drakes because of this. Oh. So we've got a new dispel range for Rune Lords who can dispel within 21. And they get +2 to their dispel rolls. It used to be both these two were 18 and this was 24, but whatever. The General of the Empire and Captain of the Empire have increased their leadership by 1. That's good. Horde to State Troops and Veteran State Troops list of abilities. Yeah, I think that's pretty useful. Getting an extra rank bonus kind of makes sense for a troop that is a bit of a horde. But, I mean, I'd rather the Empire had like a, I don't know, a serried ranks rule where they just get double rank bonus for, and not horde, basically. So you get +4 instead of 2. I think that would be cool. But, Great Sword, Oh, so they don't mean the sword, they mean the actual unit. What are they, 3? Sorry, I hadn't spotted that. I just assumed that great swords were... No, they've gone up to strength 4, as they damn well should be. Righty-ho. Oh, I've gone on the wrong one. Count's Champion, which is... Royal Pegasus goes up to... Right, now we're starting to see if they are fixing the Bretonians at all. Let's have a look. So, Mount is just before here. So, Royal Pegasus is now an extra 10 points. Great. And Cavalry, Mountain Knights of the Realm, Quest Grail, Peg. Peg Knights were 55 points. They are now, drum roll please, 59. What did I say? 55. 50. They've gone up 4 points. And delete Lance formation. They can't be in Lance formation. That nobody used. I think I saw one person use it once and it was an absolute disaster because he couldn't actually do it. Like, it was such a pain in the... Falcon Horn of Fredamund is single use. This is really good news. This means Bretonia aren't massively broken anymore. They're just a little bit. But making this a single use item, absolutely 100% agree with that. Every treatment ancient knows spells from one of the following laws of magic. So, okay, that's it for oh, and Burning Gaze. It's changed the casting value to make it a bit easier. But the cool spell, you don't going to take that. The other cool spells, the one that gives you a 5-up ward and the one that gives you, well, in fact, I'll just show you. The Law of the Lady is a line magic missile thing that, you know, whatever. Oh, this also makes Elise Ducard even better because, like, 3 and 4 don't really make that much difference. And really, what you want is, because you can take 2 of these, so you want her to have the Lady's Wrath and the Lady's Gift, and then put her in a big unit of knights in the middle of the table so she can use her dispel shenanigans to maximum effect. Because she's basically, like... Because basically, if she rolls a double to dispel, it's auto-dispelled regardless of the... Apart from double 1, obviously. But it's auto-dispelled, like, as if she's dispelled it with irresistible force. Apart from if you roll double 6, you can't dispel those. But still, like, she's getting +2 to dispel, which is the same as your level 4's +4 to cast. So actually, Elise Ducat, I think we'll start to see her a lot more once people look at her relatively to other stuff. And actually, these two spells are the ones you want. Lady's Gift, okay, so you can't reliably get the 10+ anymore, but you can reliably get the 7. You get regen 6, and if you get a 10 or more, it's regen 5. Friendly unit in combat is fine. That's great. And then Lady's Wrath, and these are both remains in play as well. So, you know, you can basically, your opponent might forget that you've cast them if you just do it at the start of turn 1, and then don't say anything about it until like turn 3 or 4 when the unit charges in. And then you're like, oh, and of course, we've got +1 strength, +1, so essentially strength 6, AP 3, lances on a unit that may have a 5-up regen, right? So that's pretty useful. Magic, so that's all the Bretonnian stuff. I don't think they've nerfed Pegasus Knights enough. They've made Questing Knights unit size 3+, which I actually quite like. I think that's quite cool. They did that a while ago, and we're still not seeing any, but I don't know. I'd like to see more Questing Knights, because I quite like them thematically. I'd like units of Questing Knights to be 1+, really. In fact, I'd like them to get rid of, like, units of Questing Knights, and you just have, like, little, you know, and their job is to go around and kill monsters, and they've all got Monster Slayer, but, like, 1 attack. So everybody's terrified. Everybody with monsters is terrified of them, just in case they charge in and you get that one really big swingy blow. Do you know what I mean? That'd be cool. And very thematic, but it probably wouldn't work very well rules-wise. Not much better than having a unit of them anyway. Right, oh yes, we were looking at Wood Elves. So it now says every Treeman Ancient knows a thing from the thing, but... Every Treeman Ancient knows spells from one of the following laws of magic. Every Treeman Ancient knows spells from one of the following laws of magic. Every Treeman Ancient knows spells from the following laws of... Oh, God. From one of the... Spot the difference sometimes, isn't it? It's from one of the... So, people... well, of course it's only one. It actually says in the main rule book, but they've just... Well, they've said they've clarified it, but obviously this is in print, so people who've bought the printed version still have it all wrong. So... Okay. Deepwood Coven knows a single randomly generated spell. If you wish, this spell may... Oh, okay, so you can go for the signature spell of the chosen law of magic. Cool. So neither of the signature spells are much good, but I think battle magic is Hammer Hand, which could be good actually for sisters, because because sisters they're basically your heavy cavalry, so being able to do a Hammer Hand, you know, with +2 to cast, remember that's essentially the same power as like a level 4 wizard, so that's pretty good now actually. You know, the reason they're heavy cavalry is because they've got a 4 at ward save, which is the best armor save in the Wood Elf roster. Once players have finished placing terrain in Wood Elf rounds, playing most position wood measuring no less than 3 inches at its narrowest and no more than 9 inches at its widest point. Used to be 12, I think, didn't it? So they've made that wood a little bit smaller. 8 and 12, so it's gone to 6 and 9. Anywhere... Hold on, did they just change the first paragraph? Change the first sentence, yeah. So they just changed the size. It used to be 8 and 12. These are now 3 and 9. And basically, you just want a big 9-inch circle that you plop down, and that's your woods. Used to be 12. Forest Walker, changed the spell's casting value to 9, so they've made those a bit cheaper. White Lions have Furious Charge. Oh, that's all White Lions as well. So those with the Honour, the Chariot, Riders only, doesn't count. The White Lions themselves don't have the White Lion special rule. But Furious Charge is a pretty decent... again, considering how infantry is in this edition, and again, considering, you know, you get to fight with 2 ranks, even with great weapons. Like, White Lions, they do have normal great weapons with an extra AP. Now they can basically fight in 2 ranks, and if they charge, they still get an extra attack because of this Furious Charge. So actually, White Lions are hella cool now, and they're the high elf list I wanted to buy. However, not unexpected, but unremembered tax bill has deleted my ability to buy Warhammer this month. Sorry. Well, it pretty much is this week. I should be alright by the start of July. Hand of Cain. Change the spells cost so they made that easier. Then we got some stuff here. Delete Guardians of the Temple from the list of special rules on the Teutogen Guard. Right. I don't know what that does. I can't remember. Oh no, I've only got this in EPUB. And of course the links don't work, because why would you want a document that works? All that Games Workshop care about is you can't PDF this, which is so fucking dumb. You can, because you can just copy and paste all the pages and put it in like a PowerPoint and then print off the PowerPoint to PDF. If I really wanted to try, it's just an absolute. It just takes ages. I did one of the books like that, and oh god, it took forever. Right, so they don't have. When engaged in combat, reroll any hits of a natural 1. So they can't reroll 1s to hit anymore. Why? Why have they taken that off them? Why did they need to take that off them? Okay. Fine. But, like, seriously, why? If you're, like, that player who's bought a load of these and just done them up, and they're like, now suddenly you can't reroll 1s in combat anymore, you're just going to be sat there going, why? It's not like they're broken. Like, they're not Pegasus Knights. Okay, so Arcane Journal High Elves. So I haven't done a review of these yet either, actually. So Krace could also replace a tree like Wood Elves can. Their trees have also been made smaller. Hammer Hands power level's gone down to 1 because it was 2, but like we've already discussed. Minor wizards like level 1 and 2 wizards and level 3 and 4 wizards have been sort of depowered a bit in terms of their casting, so they've just done that in line. That's come down, and all that I can tell, all the vortices, the word dangerous terrain are now difficult. In fact, dangerous terrain seems to be quite rare now. They seem to be eliminating dangerous terrain. Okay. If I give armor rolls to an anvil, does the anvil itself benefit or just the crew? Just the crew. So extra runes of toughness don't affect it against shooting, which is fine, I guess, but I didn't see a problem with that beforehand. Does the Griffin standard allow a unit... Ooh, now they've got Horde. Oh my goodness. They can have a rank bonus of 6 from the Griffin standard. That's pretty cool. If Harald Gudmundsson issues a second challenge using a skilled duelist, can he fight again immediately? Can his opponent in that challenge fight again? Yeah. Empire Road Wardens. Well, they don't have Motley Crew, do they? So they technically can't, I don't think, but whatever. So basically it's saying if I upgrade the unit of Road Wardens, so they're basically what Pistoliers should be, do I have to upgrade the champion or can I leave him with a crossbow? And the answer is No, it's fine. You can. They do have Motley Crew actually, don't they? Because they're supposed to. Because you can give the champion different weapons anyway. But you can now give a champion a crossbow instead of. Okay, fine. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. Can a unit with defensive stakes be hit by impact hits or stomp attacks by a charging enemy? Yes. So, so spells that count as a low linear obstacle stop you doing stomps and impact hits. Well, no, not spells, particularly the one in the battle magic. That stops impact hits and stomps, like a low linear obstacle. However, defensive stakes that count as a low linear obstacle don't. Fine. What happens if a unit in Lance declares a charge finds movement blocked by the presence of an enemy unit to its flank where the unit gets wider? It counts as a redirected charge. Yep. Can Corhill or a Croatian chieftain join a unit of White Lions? Of course they can. So that's the good guys. Pretty decent set of rules changes. I still think Pegasus Knights are the best unit of the game. They're just not as best as they were, but they're still very, very... No. They're still very, very strong. The increases to the abilities of infantry are very, very interesting. And I think that's going to severely impact the ability of Bretonia to do as much damage as it has been doing. But I think what's still going to happen is you're going to end up with, with essentially Pegasus Knights roaming around the battlefield, trying to get a good angle to get a charge off, picking off lone characters, monsters, war machines, all that kind of stuff, other cavalry units, all that kind of shenanigans. That's essentially still going to happen. And then when everything else has run out, then they'll start hitting big infantry blocks if it makes sense to. I think the one thing this is going to do is it's going to make it harder, or in fact all of these rules so far, is it makes it much harder to table an opponent, and it makes it much harder to get a lead on an opponent, which is really interesting when you consider the match play rules, in that they've made it harder to get a win because they've changed. I mean, everybody previously had accepted that 100 point differential was enough for a win. They've now said you need to win by more than 300. Less than 300 is a draw, technically. So they've made it harder to extend that points lead with this rule set. And they've also made it harder, although saying that, they've made it way easier to throw away your cavalry by front charging a unit of infantry. I mean, the lesson here is don't ever front charge a unit of infantry with cavalry. That's just stupid, and that's exactly what they've done. Although I've said that, and then I've had a bit of a second doubt about something I've just said. Where's the fighting rank? Not even in the front, so you get the 2 rank thing in any. So even if you charge in the rear, you get to your fighting rank becomes the rear 2 ranks. So yeah, it just makes cavalry charging infantry particularly difficult because infantry are going to get a lot of attacks back. Like the unit of infantry is going to have more attacks than your cavalry have, like almost guaranteed, even if you kill a load. So you're just going to have to really pick your charges a lot better now, especially when you're picking off infantry with cav. It's really important that you get your charges right. Cool, let's have a look at the bad guys. Army book. Evils. There they are. Just in case I can't remember a thing. Right. Fanatics, unless it's fleeing or in marching column and concealing unit. So basically, now if you're fleeing or in a marching column, you can't release your fanatics. Troll mobs get motley crew, and then they can take a whole variety of weapons. So you can have great weapons, extra hand weapons, just hand weapons, whatever. That's quite cool. It makes sense thematically. I don't think it adds anything rules-wise. I think you're still, like in tournaments, just going to see them all with great weapons, but whatever. Porco's pig sticker only applies when it charged. I didn't know it didn't, so thanks for that. They've made those spells easier to cast, I think. Chaos. demonic mounts. They've changed mounts now. Within the new match play rules, they've basically stopped Chaos Lords from taking a monstrous mount, and I'll show you why. I mean, so the principle is that you're not allowed to spend more than 25% of your points on any one single unit, was it, or character? I can't remember. But anyway, a character is a unit. So if you take a Chaos Lord and you stuff your Chaos Lord on a Manticore, the Manticore is 120 points, so that's 310. So you can put him on a Manticore, but you can't put him on a Dragon because the Chaos Dragon costs 285. And no, you can. What am I talking about? I was looking at this earlier and I think I've completely done my maths wrong, haven't I? Absolute idiot. Right, so character, Chaos Lord 195, monster 285, that's 480, isn't it? Oh, well, you can have a Chaos Lord and a Dragon, but you can have no upgrades. So what they've done is... where do we get to mounts? So mounts at the moment, demonic mount says Chaos Lords and Exalted Champions only. But a demonic mount, a Sorcerer Lord may be mounted. So that... Right, so... Ooh, that's really interesting for Rules Rise, because you can now put aspiring... Where is it? You can now put aspiring champions on demonic mounts. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. That means you can put your battle standard like a little... You could anyway. You could have them... Anyway, that's cool. Manticore and Chaos Dragon, you can put your exalted champion on there as well. Now, your exalted champion has only toughness 4, and the Chaos Dragon is toughness +1, so you'd have a toughness 5 dragon, which isn't very good. I know it's minus 70 points, but you get a lot for those extra 70 points. You get +1 leadership, +1 attack, +1 wound, +1 toughness, +1 weapon skill. I think all of those together are worth an extra 70 points. And full plate armor is another massive difference between the two. Chaos Lord and Exalted Champion. So Chaos Lords are a huge step above your Exalted Champion. So I'm not sure about that one really. But basically they've banned a Chaos Lord on a Dragon, because once you've gone for a mark, you've got no points left. Chaos Trolls, and they've done the same with High Elf Dragons really. Like your High Elf Dragon after a load of upgrades is about 600 or 700 points. So now anyway. Chaos Trolls also get the Motley Crew. This is big. Chaos Knights get counter charge. I love this. I lamented the fact that they didn't have it initially. Now they have. I think Chaos Knights are great. The Chaos Dragon gets Impetuous. Remember, it can test its leadership, which will be like 9. Diabolic Splendor. This one is -1 to hit in shooting. You can only be infantry or cavalry, so you can't have a massive cloud of flies if you're on a dragon anymore. Enchanting Aura. That's... What is Enchanting Aura? Is it -1 to hit in combat? No. What the hell is it? Cancels out strike first. That's the one. Sorry. Infantry or cavalry only now? I mean, this is unnecessary given the points restriction on a Chaos Lord on Dragon. Like, I don't understand why I can't make a decent Chaos Lord on Dragon with one of the... Because literally every single time I've written a Chaos Lord on Dragon, I've given it one of those two. Like, and I've, only gone with the Diabolic Splendor, basically, because I'm going for a Nurgle Dragon. I've actually converted one. Like, it's a pretty big conversion. It's taken me ages to do. And I had to, like, sculpt the base and everything. Like, I've taken absolutely bloody ages on it. And, like, a big Nurgle Dragon having a massive cloud of flies, which is exactly the same as Khemri have, I can't do anymore for some stupid reason. If Armour of Ages is allowed on a dragon still, I'm going to go over to Lenton this afternoon and strangle someone. I don't care who. I'm not. Just for legal purposes, I'm definitely not. That was a joke. Right. Field Dwarves will be really good in the Magic game going forward. Hobbit on hold? I totally agree. I think they're going to be good in the whole game, considering the massive improvement we're getting to infantry in general. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, they're just going to be great. Right, Infernal Puppet, unless you don't use it whenever an enemy wizard is within... Infernal Puppet, is that the cool annoying thing? I can't remember what any of the chaos items are called. Like, they just won't stick in my head. It would help if I clicked on the right thing, isn't it? So it's an arcane item. It is that one. Yeah, Infernal Puppet. So that's the one where you got to roll an extra d6. That is now awesome, by the way. Like, that is now absolutely the dog's nuts. Because extra d6 and discard the highest result makes... It was pretty effective anyway, but now it's like double effective. Considering everybody's had their magic nerfed. Like, all magic has been nerfed. So... And actually, probably to a level it should be. I really wouldn't be surprised if this magic rule set was one that they play tested beforehand, and they thought, well, you don't really get a lot of spells off, do you? Let's go with the higher level stuff, and then people will have more fun casting spells. Whereas now they've made it actually really difficult. Magic is now quite unreliable. Before, it was quite reliable. So they've made it, you know, the magical effects of spells are still all right, but not amazing. And now, I think they've depowered magic pretty well, actually. What was I talking about? I got distracted. Dwarves. Yes, dwarves good. Where was I? Here. Infernal Puppet. It's within 15 inches of them. So it used to be 24, it's now 50. So you've got to get closer for that debuff to take effect. So that is now not as good, because 15 inches is actually quite close. It's charge rangeable, isn't it? So the difference between 15 and 24 is that you can't get charged from 24 inches. 15, you probably can. Dragon Ogre's points value has gone in a direction to 59. I'm not entirely certain what the value was before. I wish they'd give Forsaken skirmish. Are they a monster? Where the bloody hell are Dragon Ogres? Oh my word. Where have you put Dragon Ogres? Are they in beasts? They are, aren't they? They're in beasts. It should technically be under infantry because it's monstrous infantry. Yeah. They've gone at 3 points. 59 from 56. Yeah, I can swallow that. That's fine. Skeleton chariots have gone up to 41 points. What were they? They've gone down? I mean... okay, fine. Khemri need a buff, obviously. Vortex of Souls casters... Yeah, so they've depowered that in line with all other wizardry. Flail of Skulls, strength modifiers, only applies against enemy models. The wielder charge this turn. They've changed this terminology quite a lot on like charging bonuses and stuff. So it's basically the charging bonuses only apply against the models that you have actually charged. So like I said, if you've done a pursuit against an enemy that fell back in good order, new round of combat, counters charging, still charging, but if you then get counter charge, you can't use your charging bonuses against the unit that kind of hit you in the flank, right? Whereas previously, before today, you could Usherps. That doesn't work. Usherps. That's a horrible word to pronounce. How did they intend you? Usekpi. Anyway, Incantation of Desiccation has gone down a little bit. Das Skull Smasher. You must choose which kick Nick will use when... he's got multiple weapons, hasn't he? He can pick one. That Fetid Whirlpool used to be dangerous. It's now difficult. These have changed a little bit. Casting value have come down a little bit. That's to do the new charge thing on the Accurate Axe. Charge thing on Storm's Wrath, which was a lance, I think, for the Heralds. Dark Coven. Have they changed what they've done? To do so when a brave shaman makes a casting plus roll if one or more. So it was plus one for each, wasn't it? I think before. Now it's just one for one or more friendly wizards within. They're not fleeing within their command range. So actually, it's actually slightly larger range than Cathay have, because their elite ship's normally like 7 or 8, isn't it? But Strangle Root. Banner of the Warped Moon becomes single use. Beastmen. I haven't bought that one, have I? I don't know what Banner of the Warped Moon does. Let's cheat and use the free rules that are here somewhere. Banner of the Warped Moon was cannot use fly, is now one use only. Okay, fine. Whatever. Sepulchral. I think the problem with turning off flying, even though it's a cool ability, is that some units have like fly 9 and normal movement of 6. I'm looking at you, dragons. And then some units have like a fly, but then a normal movement of 1, like a gyrocopter or whatever. So, you know, turning off fly is hugely impactful on some factions and not impactful at all on others. So when balancing items for a tournament, you know, how much you take that into effect. I don't know why all of those things aren't the same points cost, because it's the same bloody effect for everybody. But, you know, why do Beastmen have to pay 20 points or 10 points more, than Bretonia, because theirs comes in the form of a banner rather than a horn? Like, I don't know. In fact, the turning off fly is way more valuable for you Bretonians, because they can fly quite long distances themselves. So, right. That was a bit loud, sorry. Where are we up to? Sepulchral Animus, once per turn, Leech Priest may cause one to do so, nominate undead, blah blah blah, loses a single wound, Leech Priest then may then apply a +1 modifier to their command. Swarms, monsters, cast. What's changed? I'm not sure that anything has changed there, to be honest. Another EPUB special. It says page 35. 35. Like, the thing is, and this is another thing that pisses me off, EPUB, you can do it so this matches this. Right, may draw upon blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Swarms. Unit immediately uses 1 to 3. Oh, okay, so basically they've now said lose a single wound. So it used to be you could pick it's 1 to 3. You lose 1 to 3 wounds, and you get that as a bonus. Now not. It's just 1. Flail of Conquered. Yeah, they've aligned that with the new charge rules basically. Regen value goes up by 1 on Stone Shaper. Isn't that what it did anyway? Stone Shaper. I say page 41. Oh, bloody hell. What did it say? Page 42, sorry. I was nearly there. 42, which is 43 in the document. Stone Shaper. Improves the armor value of its regen saved by 1. Improves the regen. Oh, okay. So they've changed the concept of regen saves have a regen value, ward saves have a ward value, armor saves have an armor value now. So they're just clarifying that language. Can a Black Orc boss take a Black Orc chariot as a mount in an army mode using Ultimate Goblins Grand Army composition list? No. Yes, because it's only in Nomadic Ward. That's what it says. Can Infernal Puppet be used against a bound spell? Yes, of course it can. When fighting things such as Magic Standard, counted by the units? No, you can't use the standard. What did they put previously? Bad Guy, Errata, Arcane Journal, Warriors of Chaos. Lies. It shouldn't be blue. It shouldn't be blue because blue is supposed to be, we've already provided a bit of feedback, but we've amended it for this edition. Whereas, as you can see from the previous errata, it's not there. So they haven't. It shouldn't be blue. If a unit can they be transfigured by... In fact, there were 2 bad guy questions. There weren't there? Skin Walls and Warfire Dragons. What happens if... Hold on. Oh, no. That's the wrong section of it, isn't it? So it's not lies. Narrow the jaws fought between the 2 champions alone without any support from their units. Yeah, that's pretty clear. What did they turn it to this time? 2 participants alone without any support from their units. What? I don't understand what the... 2 champion... Oh, okay. They've changed the word champion to participant because reasons. Like, we don't know. Anyway, whatever. Because it's always going to be a champion because it's a single wound, you know, unit champion, isn't it? It has to be a unit champion, doesn't it? I don't know. Can't remember. Can they be if a character joins the unit skin walls, can they be transfigured with the water form special rule? No, of course they can't. And that's it. Actually, that's it. That's the whole errata, the whole lot. Oh, 1 hour 57. What a vid. It's taken ages. There's a lot to go through. There has been a lot to go through. I hope you found it useful if you've listened to this. It's so my feelings, I think dwarves are going to be very happy with the improvements to infantry because it's basically their entire roster gets an upgrade. I'm really excited about this edition because I think they've made big blocks of infantry a thing now, and I've got tons of Chaos Warriors that I really want to get out on the tabletop. I really like that kind of old-fashioned serried ranks of metal, you know, and infantry always were the big bit of an army, right? Because, you know, you've got to occupy the territory with people, and infantry is the best way of doing it. You know, despite the fact that actually historically quite a lot of armies had a lot of mounts, they wouldn't fight on them. They were just there to sort of carry people and baggage and stuff and food. You know, the horses or donkeys or whatever that people were, or asses or camels or whatever people were riding, were actually just transport. They weren't really battle mounts. They were just mounts that could be used as battle mounts in a pinch, but they weren't really trained or whatever. Like a war horse is a very, very expensive thing. It's not the same as just getting a normal hobby horse and, you know, getting a sword and riding at people. You know, training a war horse is incredibly lengthy and very, very difficult. So that's why not a lot of cavalry really ever existed. And I'm really pleased with the direction they've taken. I'm really pleased that they've nerfed big monsters, so that essentially big monsters are going to fly in, do a lot of damage, and then naff off because they fail their break test. Because at some point they're going to lose a round of combat, and they are massively outnumbered. Even though they're massively outnumbered by effectively to them what are ants, it doesn't matter. If you're crawling with 4 billion ants, you're not you're going to run away from them, aren't you? So even if you are killing a few every now and again, so because it hurts. So I'm quite happy with all this. Dean says it makes one to play again. Historically, you could only charge a horse into combat once. After, it's unlikely to let anyone ride it into battle again. Well, unless they were trained, right? But I mean, yeah, you are right. War horses didn't didn't last very long. Yeah. Although some of them, they like the famous story War Horse, for example. But yeah, cavalry were a kind of one and done thing, and like. One thing that constantly annoys me about Warhammer and historical and ancient battles and all that kind of stuff is that they've never got lances right. They always have lances, though it's like some big strength AP blah 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 thing. Lances are shit against infantry, right? They, I was talking about this the other day and somebody said, yeah, but spears wouldn't be better than lances. And I'm like, well, They would because they're roughly the same length. But if I'm a bloke, this is bloke holding a spear, right? Bloke with spear. But if bloke with spear is on horse, right? How much out the front of the horse does a spear poke out? Right? Not a lot. On foot, a lot. So a spear has way more reach on foot. Like, your average infantry spear has more reach on foot than a lance on a horse. What lances were for killing other cavalry. That's why lances kind of evolved later in your kind of weapons tech. You often saw cavalry, riding along with spears, and the spears that they were riding, that they held, like it's ancient Greek and all the rest, they didn't use the spears for infantry. They used the spears to kill other cavalry. Because if you've only got because basically, if you ride into battle, right, and you're on a horse, you charge it and you use the mass of the horse to drive a wedge into the enemy, and then you start hacking down on people's necks, heads, exposed areas at the top. This is where they're all trying to fight upwards, which is, really difficult to hack upwards. It's much easier to hack down. So that's how cavalry would work. So that's why, like, if you look at Total War, for instance, your anti-infantry cavalry is always basically hand weapons, and your anti-large cavalry is always the ones with lances, because that's what lances are for. They're for sticking in horses and people on horses. And in this fantasy world, they're for sticking in monsters. So, I think they've never got lances right, in my opinion. They've never... if you see a unit of cavalry with lances on the tabletop, you ought to be absolutely terrified of letting your cavalry anywhere near them, right? Because they're just going to scythe through your cavalry. Whereas, actually, you shouldn't be that bothered about them charging some lances into your unit of infantry because, well, they've got lances and they're absolutely rubbish against infantry. If you get on target with one, right, it's going to get stuck in that. You may be able to impale 2 blokes on one, spear, but that's nothing compared to the 3 or 4 blokes that your horse is going to injure by trampling all over them, right? So they've never really got the balance right, I think, between infantry and cavalry. They've started to address it a bit with this version, so I'm really happy to see that. I'm really happy to see magic being depowered in a sensible-ish way. I do think that they've not really thought through the spells that they've made easier to cast, because they've by no means made all the rubbish spells that you probably wouldn't take much easier to cast. They've got rid of the pillar of fire problem. They've also made all the vortices that were dangerous terrains now just difficult. Dangerous terrains that were dangerous terrain now just difficult, which is an interesting concept, because I would have thought like riding through a vortex of chaos or a swirling pillar of fire or, you know, a kind of Gaia-like entity that's essentially sprung out of the ground made of, you know, like a flesh or like a mud golem or something. I'd have thought riding through that would have been quite dangerous, and I think dangerous is the right level. But you know, obviously, it's just difficult. It's merely. I wish get the rules writers to wander through a pillar of fire and let them tell me whether that was dangerous or a difficult thing to do. Which one's more appropriate? But yeah, I don't know. Overall, a good set of changes. Most of it's really well written, actually. There are a few bits that I think, you know... Now, I've said that, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there were a few bits where I think they've not really clarified it in the way they think they have. In particular, the stuff about weapons. That's not clarified at all. Like the stuff about when you choose weapons and when you... and why and how you choose weapons before combat. They've not really cleared that one up, I'm afraid. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty good. And the frenzy thing, I don't understand why they've nerfed frenzy. It's not that good. It's not that good. And they're giving a lot of stuff furious charge, which is basically a supercharged version of frenzy because you don't have to, you know, pursue. The real problem with frenzy is the fact that you have to pursue. You can't test to restrain. And that's whereas Furious Charge, you do get to test to restrain. So that's, you know, remaining in control of your unit after it's hit the front lines is, you know, is really, really useful. Whereas Frenzy, you've lost control of that unit. In fact, once you've thrown that unit into battle, you might as well assume it's dead. Basically, any frenzied unit, you might, as soon as you deploy it, you might as well assume that by the end of this battle, that unit will be dead. So you might as well throw it in straight away and try and get its points back somehow. But anyway, I think that gets me to the end of the video, really. 2 hours and 10 minutes later. If you've been watching live, thank you very much. If you're watching later, you know, give us a like and sub. If you're 2 hours in and you haven't subscribed yet, what on earth are you doing with your life? Click that button. I don't know why I said that. That sounded a bit aggressive. Sorry. Anyway, toodaloo and...